Ground effects are great. Using fans for ground effects, even better. Add that to an Assetto Corsa car that's been produced by the same people that built the real car, and you've got something pretty out of the ordinary. If you wanted a go-kart that sticks like a Scalextric car, this is for you. It drives beautifully and races really well thanks to its total lack of any tangible size. And of course there's the fans. Powered ground effects are now allowed in Formula Student, which I can only presume will see an entry from these characters, appropriately disguised as today's youth. The Mad Formula team are back and justifying their name. In 2020 they made an Assetto Corsa mod of their real-world Formula Student car, and it was understandably well received. This new car, or cars, we'll get to that, are a completely different species. In numbers, the MFT01 is fairly modest. 69 brake horsepower, which is roughly the same as this bad boy. It isn't much to shout about, but then again, it's only a quarter of the weight of the, let's be honest, hardly scale-breaking KA. The massive wings and underbody aero make Formula Student cars a pretty grippy proposition, but now they've allowed powered ground effects. So, fans, 8 of them in fact, they generate around 60% of the car's total downforce, which, to put it bluntly, is noticeable. If that wasn't enough, you can turn them on and off like DRS, and as you can imagine, losing that much downforce shifts a literal fan load of drag at the same time. It's like hitting a particularly potent push to pass button. Now, killing off 2/3 of your downforce does have downsides, and you better be sure you're ready for the suction to go away and for the acceleration to come in all at once. Then when you hit the end of the fast bit, it's even riskier going back into the corner, where you want all of that drag and downforce to shorten the braking zones and to improve corner speed. Thankfully, the fans kick back in when you hit the brakes, just like DRS. Unlike DRS, it also deactivates them with large steering inputs as well, to protect you from your unwise life choices. If you drove the last Mad Formula car, you'll know what to expect. Kart-like handling, but with Formula car cornering speeds. But the Evo version of the car takes this concept, throws out the power restrictions, and things get mad. Sorry! This thing is a bit of an animal. You wouldn't think upping the power to 121 bhp would change all that much, but it takes what is a very planted, drivable car, jettisons those 2 adjectives and replaces them with words like lethal and sounds like ah. So it's quick, and I thought I'd see how it compares to that ever-present force in sim racing, the GT3. I will admit that Goodwood is more suited to the Evo than the Ferrari, but it's also dead scary. The short wheelbase, twitchy handling and variable downforce makes track positioning over this twisty circuit all the more difficult. And then there's the bumps, which are enormous and arguably don't play all that well with ground effects. But as you can see, the little 121 bhp critter is seriously fast, and by the time you really make the fans do their job in the second half of the course, it's already over. Now, this took more than a few attempts to get something even vaguely resembling a clean run, but on a purpose-built circuit with tarmac that doesn't moonlight as a back alley dentist, and with the width that you need to properly throw this thing around, it's actually pretty pleasant. But for me, it's the regular version of the car that shines in wheel-to-wheel racing, and the GPK kart versions of various famous circuits by Nitro McLean provide some of the most fun racing I've had. The kart version of Spa is an obvious choice for a car that wants to corner quicker than nature intended, and it's a fantastic matchup. Radeon is appropriately scary, and the speed at which you can take corners like No Name and Puon are a little bit brain-breaking. And then there's Monaco. Not the natural follow-on from Spa, but this one feels more like a kart track. Admittedly, a kart track surrounded by yachts, Armco buildings and simulated tax dodgers, but it's a great matchup, a decent challenge, and provides better racing in this particular car than the full-size version could ever hope to. And that's as much to do with the car as anything else. The much more planted nature of the MFT01 in comparison to its older, fanless sibling makes this a considerably better car in a full-on race environment. It's a car you can trust and really lean on. With improved suspension and buckets of downforce, it's predictable, but it still retains that slightly squirmy, small wheel inputs, kart-like nature that we've come to expect from a Formula Student car. And of course, everything in the mod is based on data collected by the team with the real car and then correlated inside the sim, which, while not entirely unique in the last few years, is still a real rarity. So I don't really need to talk about how convincing this car feels behind the wheel, because that would be entirely redundant. What I can say though is it totally meets my expectation of how a fan car would behave, at least through the filter of the Formula Student setup. Now, this type of car is usually found in places like this, which are big on cones. And the nimble nature of the car, the short wheelbase and seemingly endless suction do make this kind of combination as fast as it is tricky. And that makes this a fun challenge, though the cones flying around will quickly rob you of any skill-based self-esteem you may have fostered. So conveniently, I'm more about the racing, and for me it's hard to beat those GPK circuits, of which there are many. And I can't think of a better sim racing palate cleanser. It's the exact opposite of the GT3 at Spa phenomena, though I suspect it won't be breaking their stranglehold on online lobbies anytime soon. But to gain a foothold, it does need to be quick on regular circuits as well, so I've taken both versions of the car around my favourite proving ground, Donington Park National. The MFT01 can almost take Redgate flat, just a little lift before turn-in and then try to pick a point to disengage the fans and drop all of that drag for the run down the hill. Craners are flat, if a little squirmy, and amazingly, so is the old hairpin. You do scrub speed through the corner as the fans engage, and for that I'm very grateful. Of course, there's not much to do on the run up the hill to McLean's, which, like Redgate, needs a little bit of a lift on the way in to get the front to bite. We're at top speed and the short wheelbase does make the turn-in quite a twitchy affair, but since there's not a lot of braking going on here, we've got to keep it stable to maximise our momentum through these fast corners. Coppice commands a small lift, and once the fans re-engage, there's no need to use the full width of the track, so we can hug the inside. Without the fans, well, you're in for a meet and greet with the gravel. It's very much two different cars, and choosing the one you want at any given moment is a big part of the driving experience. Now all that's left to do is to pick a braking point for the only real braking zone on the track. And it's not a big one either, which means we can carry loads of speed onto the straight and cross the finish line with a respectable 1:14.7. Now I took the Evo round as well, and it went 10 seconds faster and only a second shy of the 488 GT3. Not bad for 121 ponies. If you're not one of the, let's face it, dull people, I implore you to give the Mad Formula Team MFT01 a try. There's links in the description to the download page on Race Department and for the circuits as well. As usual, if you enjoy the mod, please do consider leaving a review or tipping the creators. Bernie would. Probably.